Welcome to Under the Neem Tree, where the world slows down and stories bloom like flowers in the moonlight. Each night, we share an ancient tale to quiet your thoughts and lead you gently toward rest. Tonight's story is called The Foolish Crocodile and the Wise Crane. Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let the story begin. Once, in a quiet corner of the forest, where a river curved gently like a sleeping snake, there lived an old white crane. He stood tall and still by the edge of the water, watching the ripples like they were thoughts. Every morning he dipped his beak into the river to catch a fish, and every evening he folded his wings and gazed at the sky. Life was simple and very peaceful. But one summer, the rains did not come. The river began to shrink. The water grew warm and shallow. The fish grew restless and afraid. The crane watched quietly. He had lived a long time, but even he had not seen the river this dry. One day, a crocodile came to the river. He was not large, not old, just greedy. He saw the crane and the frightened fish, and he smiled. "What's happening here?" he asked. The crane answered slowly. "The river is dying. The fish are looking for hope. So am I." The crocodile's eyes glinted. "I can help," he said. "There is another lake, deep and full. Let me carry the fish there, one by one." The crane looked at him, and though he felt unsure, he wanted to believe. So he lifted one fish in his beak and dropped it near the crocodile. The crocodile opened his jaws and ate it, but not with thanks, with hunger. The next day, the crane brought more. Each time, the crocodile said nothing, and each time he ate. No lake, no journey, just meals. And the river grew quiet. One evening, a small silver fish with bright eyes asked the crane, "Where do we go? Why does no one return?" The crane paused. He looked around. There were fewer ripples now, no laughter among the reeds. And suddenly, he knew. "I have made a mistake," he whispered. The next morning, the crocodile returned. "More fish?" he asked. But the crane said, "I saved the biggest one for last. Come, I'll take you to it myself." The crocodile laughed and agreed. The crane lifted him in his beak and took flight over the trees, above the river, higher than he had flown in years. And then he let go. The crocodile fell, down, down, into a dry, cracked riverbed. The forest watched in silence. No one spoke. The crane returned to his perch and folded his wings and said nothing, not in anger, not in triumph, just in stillness, because he had learned that even wisdom can be tricked, but only once. Next, the merchant's son and the stolen jewel. Once, in a town filled with narrow lanes and quiet courtyards, there lived a merchant. He was respected, honest, and kind. He traded in fine fabrics and precious gems, and he had one son, young, curious, and easily distracted. The merchant had worked hard all his life. He wanted to pass on not just his business, but his wisdom. One day, he gave his son a small task. "Take this ruby," he said, "and deliver it to my friend, the jeweler." The boy nodded. He held the ruby carefully and began his walk through the town. But the day was warm, and his mind wandered. He stopped to watch dancers in the street, paused to smell sweets from a nearby stall, laughed at a monkey stealing fruit, and somewhere, between laughter and curiosity, he lost the ruby. Panic rose in his chest. He searched the dust, asked strangers, ran in circles, but the jewel was gone. Ashamed, he returned home. His father listened, quietly, then said only one thing. "Come with me." They walked through the same streets, past the same dancer, the same sweet shop, the same monkey, and then they stopped before an old banyan tree, where a beggar sat with a tiny bundle. The merchant approached slowly. "Friend," he said, "may I sit?" The beggar nodded. They spoke for a while. Not about rubies, not about theft, just about the heat, the dust, the day. Then, the merchant asked softly, "Have you seen a boy pass by here, perhaps dropping something?" The beggar paused. He looked at the boy, and at the merchant, then reached into his bundle and pulled out the ruby. "I did not know who it belonged to," he said, "so I waited." The merchant took it and gave the beggar a coin. Then he turned to his son. "Some people lose things," he said. "Others find them. But the wise know how to ask and how to listen." That night, the merchant's son sat quietly. He had not just lost a jewel, he had lost focus, but he had found something more, a lesson that would shine far longer than any gem. Next, the mouse who became a lion. Once, in the heart of a thick forest, lived a tiny mouse. He was small, smaller than most mice, and timid, afraid of even the rustle of dry leaves. Each day, he scurried between roots and shadows, careful not to draw attention, hiding from owls, snakes, even squirrels. One day, while crossing a sunlit patch of ground, he felt a huge shadow fall over him. A lion. The mouse froze. But the lion was not hungry. He looked down and chuckled. "Why so scared, little one? I could swallow you in a blink, but I won't." And the lion walked on. But the mouse could not forget that moment. He was tired of fear, tired of shadows. So he went to the forest sage, a wise old hermit who lived near a quiet stream. "I want to be brave," said the mouse. "Make me a lion." The sage looked into the mouse's eyes. He saw fear, but also a spark. He nodded, with a whisper, and a swirl of dust and light. The mouse became a lion, strong, powerful, tall. The forest trembled as he roared. For a while, the new lion was proud. He walked freely. No one chased him. No one laughed. But soon, he became angry. He snarled at monkeys, snapped at parrots, chased deer, not for hunger, but for fun. He had become what he feared. One day, the old sage came to him. "You wanted to be brave," he said, "but instead, you became cruel." The lion growled. "I am powerful now. No one dares frighten me." The sage closed his eyes. "And yet, I see the same fear inside you. You are afraid of losing this form. You are still that mouse, running from shadows." The lion's heart trembled. Because it was true. The sage whispered again, and the lion shrank, back into a mouse, small, silent, but wiser. The mouse did not weep. He did not beg for magic. He bowed and walked quietly back into the forest. He was still small, still cautious. But now, he no longer feared who he was, because true courage does not come from teeth or claws. It comes from knowing yourself and walking anyway. Next, the wise parrot and the foolish hunter. In a forest of deep greens and dappled sunlight, there lived a parrot. Not just any parrot, but a wise one. He had lived many seasons, watched trees fall and grow again, listened to winds carry stories from far away. He made his nest in an old fig tree, and from its high branches, he saw everything. One day, a hunter entered the forest. He carried a net, and greed in his eyes. He looked up and said, "That parrot will fetch a fine price." So he climbed the tree, threw his net, and caught the parrot. The parrot flapped once, but did not scream. He did not plead. He only looked at the hunter. "Tell me something," said the parrot, "before you carry me away." The hunter, surprised, paused. "What do you want, bird?" the parrot said. "If you want to trap others, learn from your mistake. Don't take me yet. Watch how I behave, and you'll learn how to catch 1,000 more." The hunter was intrigued. He loosened the net slightly and listened. The parrot continued, "Put me back in the tree, hide beneath the bushes, and I will call the other birds. When they come close, you throw your net." The hunter did just that. He climbed down, hid quietly, and waited. The parrot sat still. Then he flapped his wings and cried out, "Fly far, my friends. A net waits here. Greed waits here. Fly far, fly fast." No birds came, only silence. The hunter stood up, red with anger. "You tricked me," he yelled. The parrot smiled softly. "I gave you a chance to listen, but you only wanted to take." The hunter threw a stone, but missed. The parrot flew high into the sky, crescent moon. From that day on, the hunter never caught another bird, but the parrot returned to his fig tree and sang softly each night, because he knew that wisdom is not in shouting, but in seeing clearly and flying free. Next, the weaver and the magical jar. In a small village, where the fields shimmered in the sun, and the nights were filled with crickets and dreams, lived a weaver. He worked alone. His hut was small. His loom was old, but his threads were always strong and straight. He lived quietly, spoke little, and wished for more. Not gold, not jewels, just more. Rice plant. One morning, while gathering firewood near the forest edge, he stumbled over something buried in the dirt. It was a jar, plain, round, heavy. He dusted it off and opened it. Inside, nothing. But just as he set it down, the jar filled with food. Hot rice, lentils, ghee, even sweets. The weaver blinked. He touched it again, and again the jar filled. This time with cloth, soft silk, bright dye, golden thread. He took it home, and life began to change. Crescent moon. Each day, he made a quiet wish, and each day the jar obeyed. He fixed his roof. He bought new sandals. He gifted food to hungry neighbors. People came to see the jar. At first, he let them look. Then he grew protective. The jar was his magic, his secret. He began to dream bigger. A new house, servants, respect. He hid the jar, told no one, and sat by it day and night. One evening, a child came. She was thin, barefoot, hungry. She asked for food. The weaver hesitated. Then he said no. And that night, the jar was empty, no matter how he touched it, or what he whispered. It stayed still. He waited days. Nothing. He opened it, closed it, begged, yelled. But the jar remained a jar, leaf and wind. Finally, he walked back to the forest, to the spot where he had found it. He sat beside it. And for the first time in many weeks, he said nothing, just listened. To the wind, to the birds, to the quiet. And then he whispered, "I forgot what enough feels like." He left the jar there and walked home, empty-handed, but strangely lighter. New moon. Back at his hut, he looked at his old loom and smiled. That night, he slept deeper than he had in years, because the jar was not magic, not truly. The magic was knowing when to stop asking. Next, the jackal's shadow, in the heart of a wide forest, where sunlight spilled between tall trees, lived a jackal. He was young, quick, and always chasing something. Sometimes it was food, sometimes it was praise, sometimes it was just a feeling. One day, while wandering alone, he came to a quiet lake. The water was still, clear as glass, and when he looked down, he saw his reflection. But something caught his eye. His shadow. It stretched across the water, longer than he was, taller, wider. The jackal smiled. "Look at that," he whispered. "I am larger than I thought. Crescent moon." The next morning, he told the birds, "I am not just any jackal. I saw my shadow. I am meant to be a king." The birds chirped politely, but flew away. The jackal went to the deer. "You should bow when I pass," he said. "My shadow says so." The deer blinked, then walked into the trees. But the jackal began to believe it more and more. He spoke louder, stood taller, tried to walk like a lion. Soon, even the trees seemed to whisper, "Here comes the jackal who follows his shadow." Wood. One day, the wind shifted, clouds covered the sun, and the jackal could not find his shadow. He searched the lake, the rocks, even the sky. Nothing. His tail drooped. "If I have no shadow," he said softly, "who am I now?" He wandered far, hungry, lost, until he reached a cliffside cave. Inside sat a very old tortoise, still and silent. The jackal asked, "Have you seen my shadow?" The tortoise opened one eye. "Your shadow comes and goes," he said, "but who you are stays." The jackal sat, quiet now. "I wanted to be more," he whispered. The tortoise replied, "There's nothing wrong with being small, if you know how to walk wisely." Rice plant. The jackal stayed by the cave for a while. He helped gather fruit, watched the stars rise, listened to wind instead of praise. And one day,